now. that is an amazing, that is an amazing way to start the morning that you're going to make it. I love that. That's so good. That's such good stuff. You're going to make it, my friend. You're going to make it, my friend. I love that. That's so powerful. It's so good. So good. I hope that everybody's feeling amazing. I am obviously not at home. I decided to go out and get me some good coffee, have a nice breakfast. This place is called Carpe Diem, and forgive it if the background has some music in it. Music's pretty decent though. We've been playing some pretty good jams this morning, so I am excited for today because obviously, if you're new here, we are this channel is all about the blueprint to success, right? Whether that's the blueprint to financial success, which is about today. That's why we're going to get the chance to talk about some really cool debt reduction strategies today. But then also, what about those others who want to find business ownership or leadership as well? We provide the success, we provide the blueprint to success in all of those areas: leadership, financial independence, business ownership, entrepreneurship, all different strategies, even goal setting. Goal setting is a very huge challenge for a lot of people as well. And one thing that they have a lot of issues with is being able to track and count and understand how to measure their goals. And so we also do that here. So if you're new and this is your first time here, welcome. Good morning. It's good to see you guys. Make sure that you put all of your questions, concerns, comments, and things like that in the chat because I will answer them. I always answer them live for you guys. But one of the biggest things I want to talk about is yesterday's podcast. I talked specifically. We were supposed to be speaking about leadership blueprints, leadership principles specifically, and some of those were about what I learned from the Marine Corps. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to speak about it because I ended up ending the stream instead of ending my screen share. So that's kind of unfortunate, but it's all right. Now, yesterday we did talk a lot about the misconceptions and the deception of math and what a lot of different investors tell a lot of people that are trying to learn how to grow their money in the stock market. And unfortunately, there's a lot of deceptive math out there. So, fortunately enough, I was able to shine some good light on that. And I even wrote a blog post on LinkedIn as well. So make sure you go over to my LinkedIn and let's connect. Obviously, I'd love to be able to connect with more of you guys as well. But we got the chance to talk about all that stuff and take care of everything else. So I am pretty excited about that. But today, we're going to get the chance to talk about some different types of debt reduction, debt management solutions, because bankruptcy is not the only option out there, right? And then also, what other options outside of debt consolidation is there? I mean, how many of you have realized that that consolidation can be very hard to get like a consolidation loan, especially if your credit's already jacked up. Like you're not going to get a consolidation loan. That's not going to happen, right? Let's be realistic. And so it forces you to have it forces you to have no other option but to go into bankruptcy or just to deal with whatever situation you're dealing with, and just pay it off or just go into collections. All right, and so there are some other options out there available, but one of the biggest things that I think a lot of people need to understand is it's not all about just getting out of debt. It's about staying out of debt, not going back into debt and based on whatever you have going on in life, right? If you become your own bank where you don't have to borrow money from a creditor, a lender, loan officer, a bank, or anything like that, you will ultimately have much better success in the future. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't set themselves up for the long term. They only kind of set themselves up for now, the next 2 to 4 years, and they don't really have a plan after that in order to maintain staying out of debt and not needing to borrow from anybody else. So now, depending on like your current situation, I know that there's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that I do have in my audience. And so with that, there's some really cool maximization or capital maximization strategies out there to make sure that you stay out of debt as well and utilizing somebody else's money. Not saying that you're necessarily in debt, but just utilizing someone else's money, maximizing that to make sure that you stay out of debt. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about some of the little cool stuff. Today, we're only going to get into a very basic level of just some other options that are out there. But obviously, if you would like to talk about very specific situations, because all of this is only providing different options for you. If you like to specifically talk about what options are best for your individual strategy, I would highly recommend speak with someone who can deal with all of these different strategies. One, but also two, um, it's not just about the debt. It's about your cash flow. It's about your emergency fund set up, the protection that you have, different things like that. So make sure that you're speaking to someone who is able to handle and manage all areas of that. Obviously, here at our company and our firm, we do believe in helping out families with financial education completely free, which is why obviously I'm able to do this on YouTube and provide as much value as possible on YouTube. So there's no secrets or anything like that. Just make sure you connect with me either on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook as well. Connect. You can leave in the comments. You can shoot me an email. My contact information is in the description down below, as well as all the rest of my links, business link card, and everything. But lastly, I want to ask that you guys go ahead and give this stream a like to push it out to more people who do need much more of this information as well. Just because there's not many people that get the chance to see these kind of different strategies, and so push this out by liking this video. And then also, if you feel so inclined to subscribe, subscribing is free. And also, hello Spotify. All right, so let's talk about some debt reduction strategies. All right. So, as I was saying before, debt reduction strategies are extremely important, right? Probably one of the biggest things that causes people from staying in the green when it comes to their financial plan and a financial strategy is a lot of the debt. Unfortunately, like it's the downside. And that can be managed so very well if you're properly educated on the types of strategies out there. Now, what is debt management? So I think probably one of the biggest things I think that people miss is that debt management isn't only about just monitoring your debt. It's all about monitoring your expenses as well, creating great budgets, realistic good budgets, um, actually prioritizing things in the correct way, like prioritizing your expenses, prioritizing some of your debts and things like that. Like it's extremely important because not many people think about that. They only think about debt management as of their debt, and it's so much more than that. There's so much more of a responsibility that you have when it comes to building your financial situation. All right, and so as I said before, your debt is only a piece. It's a very large piece for some of us, but it's a piece of your financial health, your financial security, maintaining that security. And so I want to make sure that we always talk about these different challenges that you currently have in your life as you start to look into some of those options out there and setting yourself up totally. All right, so what are some different types of main debt strategies? Like I said, we're only going to touch the surface on a lot of, oh, excuse me, we're only going to touch the surface. We're not going to go into some too advanced of strategies. Maybe I'll say that for a different day where I can teach you guys and show you some really cool strategies. But I do have an example of a few clients that I've worked with some of those advanced strategies too. So these are the five main types of debt strategies. And you've probably honestly heard of all of them before. Um, but it's about like what actually are they? And so here's just a brief overview of each of these, and then we're going to talk in detail about much more of them. Now, obviously, everybody understands bankruptcy, right? Bankruptcy, unfortunately, is something that's way too common. It is a legal process, though, that some people actually use as a pretty good strategy in order to relieve them of most of their liability and most of on their debts instead of their financial obligations. So we're not going to deep dive into those as much. The other four, though, debt consolidation, credit counseling and repair, debt settlement, and debt stacking, those are very effective strategies depending on your current situation. Depending on your current situation. Depending on also what your goals are in the future. All right. Unfortunately, there's not many advisors or credit specialists, debt specialists out there who care about your total future, right? Like they care about you, but their main strategy and their main effectiveness is on right now, what they can do right now for you based on whatever situation, whatever spot that they deal with, right? And this is why you need a financial strategist who they take in your long-term goals. Obviously, like you can think, well, 40 years down the line, I'll be out of debt. Well, that's true, but how did you get there, and where were you placing your money? Let's say, and I talked about it about a month ago, a few weeks ago, some of the strategies of paying off homes, right? A lot of people, if their home loan or the mortgage payment per month is $1,200, but they have an extra $1,000 of income, typically you'll see that they'll take a large chunk of that extra income left over after they pay all the rest of their bills, and they put that towards their debt, their mortgage, which is that's a pretty good strategy to pay off your debt. But this is where we talk about thinking about the long term, because maybe instead, depending on the types of strategies that you have in place, right? If you're working with a financial strategist who can help out with debt, emergency funds, and retirement planning, wealth building, college funds planning, things like that, tax planning, all that stuff. If you work with somebody like that, they could potentially say, "Hey, don't put this extra $800 a month towards your mortgage. Instead, put that towards a retirement plan, put that towards your indexing strategy or something like that, where you can then in 15 years borrow that money, pay off your home loan, right? And then now you have much more money in your indexing strategy to retire on. But your credit specialist, your debt specialist, they don't deal with the retirement piece. And so ultimately they say, hey, put all of your discretionary income, or at least a good chunk of it, towards paying off your debt. So once again, these strategies are very general, very basic. There are much more advanced strategies that you should look into based on your current situation. All right, based on your current situation, and then also you need to also be speaking with somebody who's wanting to deal with your future plans. All right. So with that, and then last big thing is that some of these options are free and some of them are not free, right, to you. Now, the ones that are not free, we're going to talk about, but I want to explain that there are some people out there. I got two different mindsets. There are some people out there who believe that it's kind of like big pharma, where big pharma keeps you sick. Big pharma keeps you sick, so that way you can continue coming back and paying for more prescriptions, paying for more treatment, paying for more care. People say that a lot of different advisors or specialists, debt specialists, or therapists, or whatever the case is, all do the same exact thing. And so, what I will say is, you do need to be careful about the individuals that you are working with, because if they are charging you a fee, they're probably going to charge you a specific fee based on whatever they want. Unfortunately, not based on the services and the value that they provide, that you're going to be getting. So sometimes free options are not utilized by some of those individuals because they don't necessarily want to put it into your strategy, because that's less money that they can make off of you. So make sure that you're also very aware of that. And then the other strategy is just that a lot of different advisors, or credit specialists, debt specialists, a lot of times they don't use some of those freer strategies just because it might cost them money, and since it's free, they either charge you for that free strategy, for that free build, for that free illustration, whatever the case is, because it costs them money to have that program. Yeah, basically that's it. Sometimes it costs them money to have that program, and so even though it would normally be free for you as a client, they're going to charge you because they have to pay for that program, which also I understand, it makes sense. All right, but just be cautious out there, because I'm going to talk to you about some of the, at least the free strategies available to you. So first off, I want to talk about debt consolidation. So I also, by the way, built this up for military service members. This one, because I do have a military service financial strategies workshop that I do, where I teach financial literacy to military. So I wanted to bring this straight over, and so you'll see some of the military stuff on here. It still applies to everybody. It still applies to everyone, regardless of whatever the situation is. But you will see that this is directly applied to military, because I myself understand it, because I was in the military, and I've created that financial literacy workshop for military service members to be able to come military service members, their families, and people that that they know to be able to come and learn massive advanced strategies, ask a lot of questions, get a lot of questions answered as well. Which, oh, let me go ahead and put that plug in right now. We are our next one will be June 29th at 12 p.m. Central Time. And so I will make sure that I have the link to I will make sure that I have the link to that workshop. And listen, even if you're not military, feel very free to show up. Again, it's going to be military based, but you're going to be able to still learn all of the good stuff. And there's also a lot of really cool techniques that military individuals should be doing that civilians can learn and dramatically change their financial situation. So I am excited about that. So June 29th, make sure you sign up. It is completely free. It's about 3 hours total. You can pop in, pop out, pick different ones to be able to come into and ask questions about tons of different information. So this is for that. Now, as I was saying before, debt consolidation. I do I do want to talk about that consolidation because it does involve a number of positives and negatives as well. And so I do want to explain that there are some debt consolidation companies that provide loans. There's individual specialists that also can help to find those lenders. And I will say though, due to a lot of the high interest rates that a lot of younger individuals, if you're a serviceman, a lot of young service members, they'll face in their early years, especially as a young adult, because they don't have much credit. And so because they don't have much credit, unfortunately, they're not able to get really good interest rates in their younger years and as a young adult. And so I want to talk about some of the benefits to credit consolidation because consolidation can be a great option if if you already have a decent credit, right? Really good credit. You're not in. This is not for people who are not in a crap ton of debt. This is just for people who have numerous debts, a lot of different debts, maybe a bunch of credit cards. They're able to keep up with all their debt payments, credit cards, loans, and things like that. But maybe they just want one monthly payment and that's it. That is a great option. Again, not for if you have a lot of debt, bad debt. You've got a bunch of or you're unable to keep up with your payments, or you're only able to pay on the minimum payments, and you don't have any extra discretionary income, things like that. But it is for people who just happen to have a lot of debts, right? And they just want one monthly payment. Now, on average, your debt consolidation loan that you get should typically have lower interest rates of your current credit on average. All right. So what does that mean? That means let's say that you have. Can I annotate? I don't know if I can annotate. Uh, no, I cannot annotate. Wait. Nope, I can't. Okay, that's fine. So let's say that you have, credit cards, personal loans, 18% interest rate, 22%, 23, 25, 26, 29% interest rates. Like, right, let's say that that's around your range of what your credit card and your personal loan, all those interest rates are, right? So your average, if they were to average it, would probably be maybe like 23% ish, if that was the case, right? If that was the case, your average interest rates overall would be about 23%. Your debt consolidation loan, depending on your credit history, depending on the amounts of credits of debts that you have, and all the rest of that kind of stuff, should on average be lower than the debt that you currently already have. So your credit consolidation loan might be at about 19 to 20%. Sometimes, right? Sometimes you can get it even lower. Once again, it also depends on the credit that you're or the debt that you're putting in there. So it has lower interest rates on average than the rest of your debt. It also has very little credit impact. Now, has very little credit impact up front. Why? Because immediately when you're just applying for the credit consolidation loan and you get approved, you just got approved for a massive loan. I mean, so let's say that you have total of $120,000 of debt and you get approved for a credit consolidation loan or debt consolidation loan. One, it helps because they're like, oh, people trust you with more debt. Oh, then cool, right? That means that you can pay it off, right? And this is another reason why I said that this is not for someone who has horrible credit already, or really bad negative credit. So there's that. But also because you are applying for such a massive loan, that all anytime you apply for a loan, that's all, or credit card or anything like that, is always going to impact your credit. Now, what I will say though is just that unfortunately, a lot of times when you take that massive loan and you pay that loan off, pay off all this debt at one time, a lot of times you're going to be wiping out a lot of credit history as well. And so because of that, it will also reduce your credit, and have a negative impact there as well. Sometimes, and it's even crazy. And this is a really weird strategy, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in debt settlement, where a lot of companies would much rather prefer seeing you make payments on it instead of taking a consolidation loan and paying it off. Because if it starts to feel like maybe you were not responsible enough to keep up with the payments, and so instead of paying it off over time, or even paying extra over time, you decided to just lump sum pay it off. And so that could actually have non-favorable impact on your credit history and your credit report. So just be aware of that. Now, some of the negatives, there is no month-to-month relief. So once again, if you're already struggling with your debt payments, with your credit payments, or whatever the case is, there's not going to be any month-to-month relief. If you're currently paying about $1,500 a month for your all of your debt total, and you get a consolidation loan to lump all of that into one payment, you're still going to be paying about $1,500 a month. There's no month-to-month relief, and you're still going to end up paying off all of that debt with little to no relief. There's still going to be interest. You're still going to have all that stuff. Once again, this is not if you're in a bad situation. This is just something for someone who's like, hey, this might be an option just to make things much more convenient as well, and for certain other long-term strategies. All right, debt consolidation. That's credit repair services. No, go back. What are you doing? Credit repair services. Now, I do like credit repair services. I have a good handful of partners who deal with credit repair, credit improvement, credit education, and things like that. And so, what is it? Credit repair is is a way to help you enhance your current credit. And again, I want to say, if you are watching, feel very free to ask any kind of questions in the chat. I am keeping my eye on the chat. I think yesterday there was a couple questions and I couldn't see it because it was kind of blocked. But I'm keeping my eye on the chat. So credit repair is there to help educate you, one, and also is one of the best ways naturally to build long lasting credit success, because it's an educational piece. Right now, outside of the educational piece, uh, you might even put yourself in a great situation. Now, cool things is it can restore or correct poor credit scores or poor credit history. Right? Maybe there's a couple things, or a handful of things, a lot of things on your report that you either don't recognize, and it's challenging for you to actually go and confront that creditor, that lender, or whatever case is. They can also do that for you. They can correct those credit reports. So that's awesome. And then on top of that, they massively impact your credit score and improve it by some of the education, some of the tactics and strategies that they do. There's some really cool strategies, and you can use this to enhance. It doesn't have to only be for poor credit, because it is about building education as well. You can learn some really cool, effective strategies, even if you're already in a great credit spot with limited to no debt at all. So this kind of like catches those. If this is like the section of people that debt handles, or that debt consolidation handles, right above and just below is where like credit repair services can really help people out, because of the great amounts of education that you can get from it. So I do love that. I mean, there's such really great strategies. There's a strategy out there called credit stacking. Credit stacking, not to be confused with debt stacking. Credit stacking, where essentially, let's say that you want to get more of a line of credit, or whatever case is, you can actually apply and open multiple lines of credit at the same exact time. Now, I'm not saying like you apply for this card and then 5 minutes later you go apply for this line of credit, and no, simultaneously you can apply for the same time, reducing the impact to your credit score, which means that ultimately you are able to get much more of a line of credit, of a spending limit. That's such a cool strategy. especially for people in a certain with a certain goal. So that's one really cool thing. Now, outside of that, though, let's say that you are in a position where you do need some budgeting. Credit repair services can dramatically help out with some credit and debt budgeting for you as well to kind of get a much better understanding. They walk you through budgeting where you are currently, as well as where you will be in the future once you pay off your debt and everything in between. Now, the downsides to credit repair services and credit counseling is just that, once again, you're going to pay off all of that debt. So if you need month to month relief because you're not able to make the payments, I'm not going to say that credit repair services are the best for you. Much closer. If you do need, some kind of relief, or you are starting to struggle with some of your payments, it could help. But if you're like not behind or not late or anything like that, don't have to worry about that too much. But now these programs, sometimes a lot of these credit repair services can take 7 to 10 years to pay off your debt, to learn everything, to get out of the program. And just because of that alone, it could be a lengthy process. And it could feel, this is where that mental piece comes in. It could feel like you're not making much progress, even though you are. And that's why it's very important to maintain working with those credit repair services and counselors, because they'll continue to work with you, right? They'll continue to help you budget. They'll continue to make sure that you understand, hey, like, it's all right. You're improving. So because it can take so long, and I'll be honest, there are some programs out there, and I have like a partner specifically, he works for you for 6 months. So I'm not saying that all the programs are extremely long, but some of them are short enough to get you in, get you out, take care of what you need, and that's about it. So that's credit repair services. Now we've got debt settlement options. Now this is a great tool for young individuals as well who already have a bunch of debt, they're already struggling to make their payments. They need immediate relief. Like, they're having a really hard time. Now, obviously, like I said before, I built this up for military service members. So because of that, there's a lot of military stuff in the little description there. But still, once again, it still applies. Now, the good things about debt settlement, though, or let me explain what debt settlement is. So there's two types of debt settlement. There's one where it's individual, and then there's the other where you're working with the program or with the company. So I want to talk about settlement overall. I'm sure probably a lot of people, especially if you are in a position where you do have a bunch of debt or any amounts of debt. Unfortunately, or not fortunately, sometimes you get like a letter in the mail, an email saying, "Hey, if you pay off lump sum, if you lump sum pay off all of your debt with us, we'll reduce it down by 60%. You can lump sum pay it off, or you can make two large payments, or you can make a payment plan for the next 6 months or 12 months or whatever the case is." That right there is settlement. That is debt settlement, where the company allows you to pay less dramatically on whatever your debts is, in exchange for a specific plan, a new plan, or whatever the case is. It happens a lot once your debt gets to collections. So if you are at collections, you probably see it a lot too. Now, debt settlement. This is not for an individual with great credit. It's not for an individual with who can handle their debts. They're not behind. It's not for people like that. So this kind of is opposite of of those debt consolidation individuals, right? Like, if you can go for debt consolidation and you can get approved for it, and your credit is already decent and things like that, this is not for you just because you have a lot of debts and you feel like you might be overwhelmed. Right? This is where you need to talk to, once again, another one of those strategists or specialists to be able to tell you, hey, no, like, you're actually in a good spot. We just need to budget well, and that's it, right? So that's very different. All right. That settlement, however, is when you are kind of close to the end of your line, and this is it. Right. It's like this, or it's like, hey, the only other option you got is like bankruptcy, because you can't get approved for a debt consolidation loan, right? And credit repair will take way too long, and you need immediate relief, so that way you could be able to make and pay for your bills and things like that. That's where debt settlement comes into play at really well. All right. So, what are some of the benefits? Now, it's really cool because you get one typically. Oh, so sorry, my apologies. You get one monthly flexible payment a lot of times. So depending on if it's individual or if it's a company or a program that you're working with, it's individual. Again, you get that letter, you get the email, and they'll tell you, hey, you can either make one lump sum, two payments, pay over the course of 6 months, pay over the course of 12 months, whatever the case is, you can pick. That's cool. If you work with a program, however, that program, they what happens is like they'll set up a bank account in your name. All right. And the reason, and again, I told you earlier, I was going to explain a specific piece about paying off lump sum, paying off all your debt. They set up a bank account in your name, and what you do is you make a flexible, typically flexible monthly payment into that bank account that's in your name. The program holds it because what they're going to do is they're actually going to reach out to those lenders, those creditors, and they're going to negotiate on behalf of you, on behalf of your account, and they're going to negotiate to pull those settlement options from those companies. So that's really cool, right? You don't have to, or you don't have to wait for them to necessarily mail you or email you something, right? Instead, they just immediately push out. They look for, different options, and they say, hey, we can make sure that we get, whatever the case is. Depending on how good the company is, they at least negotiating, they could potentially get you 40 to 60% off of your interest, or excuse me, of your debt. And a lot of times they have low to no interest on there. And so because of that, while you're making these payments to them, let's say you got $100,000 of debt, they could probably reduce that down to 60,000, 40,000. And I'm not guaranteeing that's some of the best top debt settlement programs out there. I'm not saying that all of them are just like that, right? Some of them are probably going to be at maybe $80,000 only, or maybe 90. But whatever the case is, it is great because with you having zero to low interest, you're not going to have to be paying for a lot more than necessary, and it gives you immediate relief month to month. Immediate relief month to month, which is what a lot of people need. And once again, it's not for individuals who already have a lot of or decent or above credit. This is for someone who in a worse position. Why? And we'll talk about the credit impact here shortly. But with that, a lot of these programs, they help you to get your debt paid off within 2 to 4 years. They're dramatically cutting it down, and they help you pay off that debt much sooner, which is very helpful for a lot of people, for a lot of individuals. They can actually see the tunnel. Again, remember that mental piece. This is kind of the opposite of the credit repair, or that credit repair place might weigh on your mindset. So if you're not someone who has that strong mindset to be able to continue pushing through, maybe debt settlement is an option because you can see a clear path to your financial debt freedom. And so next thing is, a lot of these programs also low to no cost. Depending on the program, or depending on how you get the settlement option, is low to no cost. Now, let's say that you get the settlement offer directly from the creditor, the lender, or whomever it is. Typically, that's not going to have any additional costs with it. They say, hey, you just pay this and that's it. You pay this for the next 12 months. That's it. That's all there is. Nothing else. You pay it off, and there's no additional fees or fines or anything like that. So that's one huge benefit. Versus if you have a program, sometimes I'm not going to say that they're no cost; they're very low cost, right? What sometimes you can see. Let's say that they were to save you 40% off of your total debt. The fee might be 10% of the debt, maybe. Again, I'm just kind of, but that 10%, going back to our $100,000 example, might to that $100,000 example, let's say that they were reduced it down to $60,000. Maybe $10,000 will be their fee. Not that you're going to pay that outright, but that will be attached onto the end of the program, or they might spread it out across that 2 to 4 years while you're on that program, so that way you don't feel it. And so, yeah, maybe you're still paying a total of $70,000 of debt, but $70,000 of debt in comparison to $100,000 is much better. Now, some of the negative pieces is just that it does have short-term negative credit impact, depending on the program that you go with. If you're reached out individually from from the creditor themselves, typically it won't. Now, a lot of times the reason why they send it to you is probably because you're in collections, and if you're in collections, I'm sure you're probably not worrying about the credit impact right now anyway. So it'll help you and assist you regardless. But let's say that you are working with a settlement company and you're just not in collections yet. Sometimes, or whenever you start that program, you have to stop paying on the debts that you put into that program. So this is going to be like something like your home or your car, things like that. Not going to be for unsecured debt, things that have some sort of collateral attached to it. It's not going to be for things like that. right? And that's the last point that I have here. It's going to be for like those credit cards, personal loans, private student loans, even work for these kind of options, things like that. Now, with that, the what ends up happening is when you enroll it, you need to stop paying on that debt. And if you stop paying on that debt for 3 months or longer, sometimes it goes to collections. And because it might go to collections, obviously it'll have that negative impact, and then also 3 months of missed payments as well. Depending on how quickly the debt settlement program works, they might be able to work very quickly and starting to get some of that debt settled immediately, right? With like within weeks of starting a program, so that way you don't even have to get to that point. Or sometimes it may take a little bit longer. It may take 5 6 months before you can get that settlement offer to that company, to that program company that you're working with. So because of that, it can have that negative impact of missed payments and going to collections as well. But once again, if you're already in a bad spot, this is something that's going to be great because you're probably not worried about that. Now, the other piece is just that with between those 2 to 4 years that you're on that program, here's the difference. Since the account is in your name and it's looking as if you are paying from your own account to those creditors, your credit report, your credit history is going to be much better and it's going to look much more favorable to your credit because you're actually taking the responsibility for your debt and you're actually paying that debt off yourself. Maybe you're going through a third party who's utilizing an account in your name to take that funds and put it into or pay off that debt, but it's looked upon much more favorably. So by the time you finish that 2 to 4 month or that excuse me that 2 to 4 year program, you're going to be in a much better place than you would be if you had one with potential other options and instead, or just lump sum paid it off. Be in a much better place for that. You would have dramatically recovered your credit. And so I do want to make sure that I explain that. That settlement next, and this is a great free option. Debt stacking options. So there's a couple different options called debt stacking. You've got the avalanching, debt or and then also you got debt avalanching and debt snowballing. And so this is something that oh wow, why did I just forget his name? Um, I just really just forgot his name just that fast. I can't think of his name. But whatever his name is, I can't think off the top of my head. He talks about this all the time, which I think is a fantastic strategy. Now, debt stacking is where you take your payments and you list all the debts that you have. You make payments on all the debts. You make minimum payments on one or all or a few, but then you take some of your extra discretionary income that you have and put it into attacking one credit or one debt at a time. Maybe max two debts at a time. And what happens is as you pay off that debt, you take all of that payment from that debt and pay it off to a different debt. Obviously, like that sounds super easy, right? If you have 5 different debts, one at 1,000, one at 2,000, three, four, and $5,000, and you were to start with the $5,000 one, or let's say you were to start with the $1,000 one, right? And you had an extra $1,000 a month as well. You could take that, an extra $500, put it towards that $1,000 debt. So now you're paying 1,500. You'll pay that debt off much quicker, much quicker. You take that entire $1,500 that you have for that debt. While remember, you're also paying minimum on the rest of the debt. So 2,000, 3, 4, 5. You take that 1,500 and you apply that to the $2,000 debt. So you're rolling over the debt payments onto the next debts. You're already without that money anyway. It's already not a part of your. It's already not a part of your discretionary income. So keep it that way. Keep it that way. So you take all that 1,500, you put it towards your $2,000 debt a month, right? Now you're paying $3,500 a month total towards that debt. You pay that one off. Now you take that total 3,500, you put it onto the $3,000 debt, right? So on and so forth. Once again, remember you're still paying on the minimums on the rest as you're doing that strategy. That example is just like to make it really easy. I know a lot of people don't have just 1,000 and 2,000, 3,000 minimum. I know, I get that. But what I am saying is that's how you roll over your debts, and that's debt stacking. Now, there's a couple different options of debt stacking where one, you could pay off the lowest debt first with the lowest balance, right? And so let's say that you have, maybe you got two credit cards at each 2,000, two credit cards at 6,000, a personal loan at 30,000, and your mortgage at 200,000 or whatever the case is. You can choose to pay off the lowest interest or the lowest balances first. That snowballing. The great thing about that snowballing is just that it helps your mindset, and mindset is huge. I'm telling you, mindset is huge when it comes to debt management. Is because if you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, it's going to be very hard for you to maintain your plan. And so it's great for actually feeling like you're getting somewhere, right? Because you're starting to see some of those debts knock off pretty soon. And then the other option that you have over there is debt avalanching. Now, debt avalanching is different. This is not for the mindset piece. This is this is much more for when it's time for you to start working on paying off those high interest rates first. You're targeting those high interest rates so that way you could pay off the max or pay off your debt with the lowest interest rates possible. Right? Obviously, you pay off the higher interest rates because if they're very high, if you wait much longer to pay it off, unfortunately, you're gonna end up paying a lot of debt. So that's what the avalanching strategy is for. So that's debt stacking. Now, debt stacking has zero impact to your credit. Why? Because you're not taking out loans for it. You're not doing. It's not impacting your credit at all. So it has no impact to your credit. The only difference is just that you're paying the debts off much faster, right? Which you have that positive impact to your credit, but it has no negative impact to your credit. In addition to that, it can include all debts. Any debt that you have, whether it's on your credit report or not, whether it's not even a debt at all. Maybe you just borrow some money from a friend or a family member or something like that, and you want to make sure you pay it off in the most effective and efficient way, so that way you're not breaking your balance or excuse me your budget. Right, that's something that you should include in there. If you borrow $10,000 from a loved one, yeah, you probably don't have an interest rate on it. I mean, granted, you should, so that way it's not counted as taxable income and it's a loan or borrowed or have it written down or something like that. But that's getting into like legal stuff. But yeah, so you want to make sure that you take that because you want to pay them off as quickly as possible. But if you pay them off as quickly as possible and you're doing it outside of your budget, a lot of times it puts you in a worse situation. If you say, hey, I'll pay you back $2,000 a month, is that realistic? If it is realistic, cool. Put it into your debt snowball strategy, and then use it in your debt snowball strategy. All right. Literally every debt, anything that you're paying on, you can put on there. Also, it's very simple to set up. There's no fees, no costs associated. However, I will say that this is one strategy that a lot of that I've seen, a lot of those repair specialists or credit or debt specialists, I've seen that they have programs that they use that are very nice. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful programs, beautiful tracking, like all that stuff. It has a lot of really nice features. You don't have to pay for that. There are some out there that will have you pay for a debt stacking strategy. And so I'm going to tell you there's very, very basic strategies out there that are going to work just as fine, if not honestly better, because it's probably a lot easier. And so I will say that. So beware of that. If you see a debt stacking strategy of what I just showed you, and somebody's charging you for that plan, understand that you can do that for free. So do not, do not, do not, do not. I don't recommend it unless you really love work with that person and whatever else the case is. All right. So understand that that is a free, completely free strategy. You can literally do it online. I can walk you through and teach you how to do it myself. So that is also something I do plan on showing you. So next, some of the downsides is that you do have to pay off all of the debt in full. Now, depending on the strategy that you build up, you are going to significantly reduce the amount of interest that you are paying though over time. But you do have to pay off all that debt. Plus, there's no monthly relief at all. No monthly relief, just because you're paying on at least all the minimums. Period. Also, it requires a lot of accountability and discipline. This is why people charge you, because if they are going to help monitor you on that budget and that program, they're going to charge you, one, for monitoring you, likely, and then also two, they're probably going to charge you for that plan to build up that plan for you. So do beware that it does require a lot of accountability and discipline, and that's why you need to work with people who won't charge you for it at all. Obviously, once again, my firm doesn't charge for these kinds of things to help you and to monitor you as well. So those are different debt strategies. Now, I want to talk about emergency fund and saving strategies because a lot of people, I think that emergency funds are probably one of the biggest reasons why people go into debt because they don't have an emergency fund built up. I think that if you're trying to achieve financial independence and financial stability, obviously you need to have an emergency fund. A lot of people say it all the time. "Oh, I need an emergency fund. I need an emergency fund. How much is enough? How much, what kind of accounts should I have out there? That we can talk about on a different Tuesday for our financial blueprint day. But I do want to make sure that you understand that without a full emergency fund in your savings account, in some sort of savings account, at least one that's growing and outpacing inflation, without an emergency fund, it's going to be extremely difficult to maintain debt stability. It's going to be extremely difficult because things will always happen. And when things happen, if you don't have a cushion, you're going to have to dig back into a credit card or into a loan or whatever the case is. Unfortunately, some people they end up having to take out, a home equity loan. Some people take things just like that. And so understand that emergency funds are extremely important. And so make sure that you're also working on your emergency funds. A lot of times, those debt specialists, they won't have you focus on also simultaneously funding your savings account while you are paying off your debt. So be aware of that because you need to at the same time. It's not an option at all. If you want to have financial stability and reduce your debt and become financially debt independent, you have to be building your emergency funds while you're paying off your debts. Now, this is the last piece. I want to make sure that I present to you. There's some really easy that you can just screenshot. Make sure in order to maintain your financial security, you're not using store cards, or other credit cards as much as possible, right? You want to reduce it. Now, if you're in a good position where you can use that and you're really educated about credit and you're really able to keep your spending minimum, then yeah, go right ahead. Right? Stop using CDs for emergency savings. Emergency savings should not be in CDs. CDs are not liquid. Liquid means you can put money in, take money out anytime without penalty, and you cannot do that with the emergency savings. And so when something happens, you do not want your money in a CD because then you're going to get penalized, and then you're going to lose all the benefits of that CD. Next, attack your debt with these different strategies. Reach out to me, reach out to someone on my team. We'll be able to help you out with building those strategies. Lump sum your debt when possible. You get bonuses at work, you get a large influx of money. Lump sum your debt when possible. It's one of the best ways to pay off your debt as well. And then also learn how to become your own bank. I can specifically teach you about becoming your own bank. It's actually a strategy that I taught you guys with indexing. And so I can continue to teach you guys about those kinds of things. So that is your debt solutions options. And I hope those are really beneficial for you. What I want to do next is quickly show you a couple different strategies that I've built up in real time. Let's see. I did have this built up, but then I closed out of my browser and now I don't have it anymore uh, built up or right in front of me. Okay, so this is going to be a super easy plan, super easy way to explain this. All right. So what I'm going to share with you is one of my clients. I'm going to leave their names out. All right. So this is just one of my clients. So they have two vehicles. They have two vehicles. Each have their own minimum payments. Obviously, they're going to make one lump sum payment or they're going to make lump sum payments or pay a bunch of extra towards one vehicle while making minimum payments on the second vehicle. Now, this is what a debt snowball plan can look like. All right. Now, in this case, they're going to pay on extra on one car until April 2025. So for about a year. And then they're going to take that entire monthly payment and pay the rest to the other vehicle and pay off their vehicle within, or pay off the other vehicle within another year and a half, significantly reducing the time that they're paying on their debts, right? So years until they're debt free, 54 months or 4.5 years versus now 20 months, a year and a half is what they're going to be paying off their debt. This is the power of debt snowballing. And this is free. People will charge you for just having this kind of plan. Now, I want to show you another plan as well. So this is the same exact client, and this is the difference between working with someone who is just a debt specialist and then somebody who actually is a full total financial strategist who can work with multiple different areas of your financial situation. So this is the same exact situation, except this time they're going to continue making minimum payments on their debt. They're going to do that on their two vehicles. And they're going to do that for a while. Come May 2027, they're going to take the entire debt amount of one car and lump sum pay it over to the other vehicle. You're going to do that? Okay. And in doing that, yeah, they're going from 50 months of payments to about 43 months, which is only about 7 months different. That's fine. There's not much of a difference on the interest paid. However, now here's the real strategy. The real strategy that we're doing here is they're putting, and it's very similar to the home payoff, the home payoff, uh, the home payoff podcast episode that we did, one of the first few episodes, and you should definitely go watch that. Where instead they paid on the minimum of their house, like in that episode, they paid on the minimum of their house, and they took the extra payments and put that towards an indexing strategy, and then they lump sum paid off their mortgage. This family is going to do the same exact thing, and after 2 years, they have enough money in their indexing strategy to be able to borrow that money and pay off the total debt balance. They'll have enough money to be able to pay off the total $22,000 for their vehicles. They'll lump sum pay it off. So which one is easy? Save money towards a strategy that's going to continue to build even when you borrow that money. Save money to that strategy, and then lump sum pay off all your debt after 2 years. Yeah, it might take, I think it was, 3 months longer, 3 or 4 months longer than the last strategy. But the difference here is just that with those indexing strategies, when you borrow money from it, and when you borrow money from it, you use it for whatever the case is, that money continues to build and grow as if you've never taken it out. And so there's a huge difference between this strategy and the last strategy I showed you. And that's the difference between working with a strategist, financial strategist who works with all aspects versus, sorry, it's getting loud, who works with all aspects of your financial strategy versus just a debt specialist who works only on one specific piece or portion. Another example, I was working with a client who has a mortgage, a car loan, and then also regular credits and things like that. And this person, they were looking at into debt consolidation. They had actually honestly started applying for debt consolidation loans, which were starting to impact their credit negatively, to where I think after the third and fourth one that they applied for, they were denied. They were denied for those loans because of the recent request for a lot of credit. And so I built them up a debt snowball strategy, and we also went ahead and I helped them to reduce their student loan payment down to $0 a month as well. And so that was also great. So now with their debt snowball strategy, I was able to now take out the student loan payment, and then also have their mortgage, their cars, the rest of their loans in there. And beforehand, it was going to take about 80 years, which is crazy. Obviously, like student loans are very, very challenging. Excuse me. Student loans are very challenging, right? Because a lot of people, the minimum payments and things like that. But then at the end of it, once I built them up that strategy, helped them out with a couple of different other little pieces, I increased their cash flow. They're going to be able to pay off all of their debt, including their mortgage that they had just gotten 3 years ago, all of their debt in 8 years. 8 years, including their home, their mortgage, which still had 27 years on it. 8 years. That's a huge, huge difference and a great strategy. All right. So make sure you're working with individuals who can work with tons and tons of different things and be able to actually fully strategize. Now, I hope this was very helpful for you guys. I always love doing this and giving you guys a blueprint to success in all manners, especially on these Tuesdays where we get the chance to talk to you about your financial independence. If you loved it, make sure you give it a like. Comment down below some of the things that you have learned, some of the strategies that you've used to pay off your debt, and then also I'd love to know much more about what kind of little things out there, what kind of little tricks are out there that you guys use to even pay off some of your debt. Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe as well, and then also give this a follow if you listen on Spotify. I do appreciate you guys being here with me. You guys have definitely been all that in a box of bricks. No, I'm kidding. You guys have been everything that I could have asked for today. So um, I definitely encourage you guys to continue on your wealth management journey, and I'm excited to see all of the great things uh, that comes from you guys today. So have a beautiful evening, and I shall see you guys tomorrow.